What's going on, world? Coming at you guys again. We got another quick video. The age of adult. Let's talk about it. So it's 2026. We are at the furthest point that we've ever been for a evolutionary perspective in modern times. In today's day and age, the average age or life expectancy of an individual is around 70 years old. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it's probably about 50 years old. 50 to 100 years ago was probably about 40 or 30 years old. So the overwhelming application and consensus for what was considered to be an adult was around 16. Now it's 18. And then we have different legal provisions in which allow individuals to engage in questionable actions based off the proximity to their age as well as their development to be considered for maturity, which we know is drinking at 21, smoking at 18, joining the military at 18, depending on your state for what you approve of from a cultural norm for engaging in sexual activities. It's anywhere from my understanding of maybe 16 and above, as well as the capacity to marry. In some states, it's I believe, as early as 12 or 14. We have moved into a society in which has the capacity to utilize technological advances in which has given us so much more information in which we did not have. So as we move forward, we need to modernize our perspective and application for when it comes to addressing and assigning adulthood to every human being. With that being said, the primary component in which every person around the world must recognize is the brain has full control. And until the brain is fully developed, an individual is not competent enough to act of his own accord and engage in actions in which they have a full understanding of their situation and environment, as well as the capacity to react when under stress or strain based off of a historical application for memory from personal experience or from teachings or lessons from other individuals in which they have the capacity to consider. Now, on average, this prefrontal cortex does not fully develop until about 25 years of age, which means at around 18, the prefrontal cortex, which is directly responsible for your maturity, your wisdom, and the actions in which you take when you consider the long-term consequences, isn't even 50% developed at the age of 18, and on average doesn't fully develop till 25. But that does not include individuals who have gone through life up until that point that have physical trauma from some type of mechanism of injury or mechanism of illness. That's not to include psychological or emotional trauma due to environmental stimuli, and it also does not include the influence from consummation, whether through eating or ingestion or drinking, or from smoking, or absorption through the skin, right? Through recreational or illegal drugs. Now, these are all fundamental factors which inhibit the development of the prefrontal cortex, which directly has an effect and impact on a human being's capacity to make a wise or rational choice. Now, when we look at all of these things, we have to take this into consideration, because if we are going to move forward as a more modern, moralistic society, these are all measures in which we have to take into consideration, because two wrongs don't make a right. So it would be improper and hypocritical to try to apply perfection to individuals utilizing a system that doesn't recognize that people are imperfect. This is also attributable here in America. The standard here in America is based off of the premise that we should hold individuals accountable no matter what, that there is no excuse, that everybody is responsible for their actions, regardless of the situation or the sense of morality. But it is hypocritical for America to understand and recognize that the historical actions of America are among some of the highest atrocities and forms of immorality that has ever been seen in the history of our planet, while simultaneously saying that you should forgive us for slavery, for Jim Crow, for slave codes, for the repartimientos, for redlining, for the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. Black Wall. Look, we can go down the rabbit hole, right? It is hypocritical for America to say, although our actions are immoral, we were a young country, and it's what everybody was doing at the time. You can't hold us accountable for slavery because everybody was doing it. Even though it was immoral and we should have known better, everybody was doing it. To sit down and prosecute an American citizen who is also young, who also may or may not know better, and is also in a situation in which their actions may or may not be immoral, but because everybody else is doing it, well, it's quite hypocritical for America to say, forgive me for my trespasses, as we forgive those. Because clearly America is not forgiving those when you prosecute a child that's 12 years old as an adult, as 8 years old as an adult. If you're not aware, the movie The Green Mile was actually based off of an individual named George Tenney, who was, I believe he was an 8-year-old boy who was accused of killing 2 white girls. And to my understanding, this was a false accusation without any evidence. And this is why I've said multiple times through executive order that we have to abolish the system that we have because it is a predatory system. We need to modernize it. We can no longer utilize anonymous tips. We can no longer utilize accusations and allegations without any evidence. This is 2026. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has the capacity to record video, audio, take a picture, take a note, something to support the situation or inference in which you are trying to allege against another individual. Because time and again, we've continuously seen immoral actions happen against American citizens lead to immoral and unequal applications of justice. Again, we have to change the narrative. We have to change the capacity from incarceration to rehabilitation, because as it stands right now, there is a high percentage of Americans in which are pushed through the criminal justice system in which, 1, are not supposed to be there, or 2, were too young to understand and fully comprehend to make a competent choice. And as it stands now, based off of your age, you can't even enter into legal contracts because you lack competency. So it should be impossible to charge an individual as an adult when clearly you wouldn't allow them to enter into a binding contract like getting a credit card as a child. Not to mention the fact that here in America, it is the common application that it is believed that America should be forgiven for participating in slavery because it was the common practice and everybody was doing it and technically it was legal. when in the same consideration, a child who is surrounded in an environment with other toxic individuals and may not be toxic by themselves, but just as a piece of fruit in which to sit side by side that is moldy, whether that other piece of fruit is moldy or not, over time that mold will spread and contaminate and infect that other piece of fruit. We cannot continuously utilize this victimization mentality to where America says everybody was doing it, so I get a pass. But then in turn and look at children whose prefrontal cortex hasn't fully developed and say, well, technically, yes, everybody else was doing it. And yes, you didn't have the maturity or wisdom or intelligence or mental competency to know better. But we're still going to charge you as if you did. It is a complete hypocrisy. It is a predatory system, and we have to change it. As always, man, like, share, comment, subscribe, follow if you have a question. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's have a full conversation about this. But it is time to change the narrative. America is $39 trillion in debt, and this was done on purpose. Now, I'm not going to tell you specifically why it was done, because it would cause chaos in the streets. It really would. But I am not one to dwell on the past. I am one who's looking at the present and wants to focus on the future. Okay? With that being said, we have to implement new measures to make sure that America is united, because we are going to need to maintain unity moving forward. That means turning the other cheek. That means forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespassed against us. That means two wrongs don't make a right. That means an eye for an eye leaves the world blind. But this also means that even in the context of accountability, when Cain killed Abel, God did not incarcerate Cain, nor did he kill Cain through a death sentence. He exiled him. These are the measures in which I have talked about and spoken about. These are the measures in which need to be implemented in order to facilitate change, in order to create a more sustainable country for all Americans, regardless of race, color, creed, or culture. Without these foundational pillars, America will find itself in a position to where there will be a hierarchy of the individuals whom are oppressed and suppressed and those that rule over. If you are an individual who has some sense of morality and you recognize that all human beings are imperfect, that we are all capable of sin, and that we all make mistakes, like, share, comment, subscribe this video so we can get the ball rolling. Vote Kelly 2028. God and country. It's time for a change.